folks, and welcome to the Launch Sequence Podcast. We're back with a little bit of a new background, new studio stuff going on. Pretty nice. This is Tomato Designed. I'm with you for another podcast episode this week, and we're going to be talking about an interesting subject. One there was a thread on Reddit about it. We kind of covered that on the stream and then uploaded it to the second YouTube channel to talk a little bit more about how people are feeling about Star Citizen at the moment. We've had about 4 months of the year of playability, content releases, patches, bug fixes, a stark difference from the 3.x series of updates where they were pushing features and just trying to go gung-ho to get server meshing out and just get things into a more solidified foundation. So here we are, and things are starting to play a little bit better for some people, maybe not so much for others, but there is a debate going on about whether or not Star Citizen is at its best, if it's feeling its best, if it could be better, if they're doing the greatest things. And I wanted to bring on Certified Gumbo, a friend and also another YouTuber on Star Citizen, and we could talk a little bit about the depths of opinions regarding Star Citizen, why features aren't being developed, and whether or not we would like to see it go in a different direction. Thank you for joining me today, friend. How you doing?
Thank you for having me. It's been a while since I've been on the podcast, but we've talked somewhat frequently over Discord and in streams and whatnot. Pleasure to be back on the show again. And I know I said this, but once again, congratulations on your new spot.
Thank you.
Posters look great. Everything. I see the decor is coming together.
Yeah, man. These are like So I got these like custom Halo posters. Some guy was making them on Reddit, and he only made like a few hundred of them. This is like back in 2017. I got them, and then our life completely changed, and I never had anywhere to hang them up. This is the first time they've been on a wall. I'm so happy about it.
Yeah, that's I can relate to that. Yeah, they look good. Everything's coming. It's like you can see all of the Space Tomato themes coming together.
Thank you. Yeah, for all who are just listening, just imagine the most beautiful room you've ever seen. And you basically got a picture. It's fine.
Just it's space and Halo related. And tomato.
That's all you need.
That's all you need.
It's really just that I got tired of mentioning Halo every show, so I wanted to just put it up in the background, and like I didn't have to say it anymore. People would just know.
Yeah, it's very apparent now.
That's how it is.
Good. I like those posters though. I like them.
Thank you. You play Halo a lot?
I cut my teeth on Halo, man. What? Like that was my first console multiplayer experience. I basically I think I call myself a hybrid gamer because I started on console, went to PC, came back to console, back to PC. So I've in the 90s I had Sega Genesis, I had a Nintendo 64, then I also had some Windows 93, I think, PC that I used to play. Like this is a game, it was Area 51 game I used to play a lot, Mech Warrior game I used to play a lot. And then once we got dial-up internet, I started playing my first MMO, which was RuneScape. And that was honestly, so that MMOs were my first introduction into multiplayer gaming, because prior to that, for all the young folk out there, consoles didn't always have online capability. So it was actually harder to play online games on a console than it was on PC. Like you had to have like LAN, like even the first Halo, Halo benefited from it was on basically the cusp of the console online gaming phrase that eventually
Halo 2 was
spearheaded. Yeah, Halo, SOCOM, like and some other games basically spearheaded that FPS online gameplay that has taken over console gaming. Like that's basically all console gaming is now, is FPS shooters and online game. But before you had that, like you had to have a LAN setup, you could only play like a local area network. They didn't have online. Xbox Live didn't exist. All that stuff didn't. PlayStation Network, none of that existed. So much easier to play online with friends on an MMO. And so all my friends who had, just a regular PC, we played things like RuneScape and um, what else? Star Wars Galaxies, Lord of the Rings Online. I never played WoW, never played Ultima.
So, but you're kind of like me. I mean, I came from consoles. I started on Halo. I'm very into the first person experience. Also really into like RPGs. I feel like 2000s were really big for RPGs on console.
Mm-hmm.
But then I suddenly found this MMO. So you've played more MMOs than me for sure, but your background in gaming isn't specifically to MMOs. And
No,
I do
no.
think that that's not unique to Star Citizen. But I think Star Citizen does manage to attract people that aren't typically into MMOs, maybe more than other MMOs. I don't know. It seems like it's a high percentage of people never have played MMOs coming into Star Citizen. You think there's a specific reason for that?
Yeah, I think that Star Citizen hits that sweet spot of your FPS, your modern FPS mechanics as far as like the style of gameplay. It's not turn based, it's not point and click, it's not more tactile. So that appeals to a lot more people because um one of the criticisms of MMOs and RPG games is like the combat style and how like um it's all HP stat based role specific combat. Like it's not as engaging as like a Halo or like a Call of Duty, Battlefield, or your more modern FPS shooters where you have to be a little bit more precise and skilled when it comes. Like you
Yeah.
have to get shots on target, right?
Yeah.
You're not just clicking on someone and then hitting your bar at the bottom on your keyboard to do
Dude,
attacks. Like
that always was what kept me from playing MMOs, was just the way. That's such a specific part of why I stayed away from not just MMOs. Um Kind of like isometric games, turn-based games, uh even an RPG like Baldur's Gate that's like kind of more turn-based. I was just so turned off by that kind of thing growing up. All I wanted
yeah,
was point click action kind of functionality, whether it was in a game like BioShock or Battlefield, and I do think that that was a really big thing that kept me away from MMOs. So I hear you there.
yeah, it's a learning curve for sure. Actually, uh, recently my cousin who never played MMOs, which I didn't know because he plays multiplayer games like someone who plays MMOs. Like it was complete shocking to me that he'd never played one before. Like
Hmm.
he's a Star Wars fan like myself, so we hopped into a Star Wars Galaxies Restoration server, and then eventually moved to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, or not Knights of the Republic, the Old Republic, the MMO, the one that's still active. And he was he made the comment about like how the combat is like when he was younger, it would not have appealed to him. But now that he's older, like he can appreciate the other aspects of the MMO that make it entertaining, like which is the hallmark. It's always the social aspect of it, and then like the sandbox and the in-game content that really makes an MMO kind of shine, like all the group play, the roles that you have to have, understanding um, all of the nuances from a combat perspective of like what's a DPS character, what's a tank character, what's the heal, like what are your responsibilities?
The strategy.
Um, yeah, the strategy behind it, the tactical nature of it. It's definitely different, but it has the same depth that a more like an FPS shooter would have when it comes to team play and team dynamics. So yeah, like I've always appreciated the team play within games. That's what I look forward to most. I'm not big on single player games. Um, I mean, I've played, like, I mean, come on, like everybody's played Elder Scrolls and like all of your go to or single player experiences, but
You playing
I
Oblivion?
I did download Oblivion. That
Nice.
was that was my first Elder Scrolls game, as a matter of fact.
Same.
Uh, so yeah, that was cool, man. They did a heck of a job uh with
I'm
that
excited
remake,
to check that out.
remaster.
That's
Yeah,
that's
it's
pretty cool.
fantastic. Like I was blown away by it. I was like, wow, this is substantial. Like it's not just like an upscale of graphics. Like they've changed quite a bit.
Cool.
I was impressed.
I'm looking forward to it. So you are a very multiplayer focused player, and
Yes.
I mean that makes sense for an MMO. But what is it that you feel Star Citizen has been? Well, I guess let's relate this back to the main topic of this show. Um, Star Citizen has kept you around, even though it's unfinished, and it doesn't really have a ton of stuff that you can do multiplayer wise. Like in terms of missions and things, everything's been very focused on singular players. Do you feel like that has changed much lately? Does it feel like it's becoming more multiplayer focused, more of an MMO like?
Um, Not yet, but it feels like they're moving towards that more dynamic multiplayer experience that are a hallmark of MMOs, which is that combination of questing and sandbox activities that can bring players together organically throughout, just whether or not you're on a quest, or you're just, participating in whatever the sandbox activities are of an MMO. There are ways that MMOs craft their linear quest material so that there is some crossover between that and the sandbox activities. Like I look at Hathor, for example, in the contested zones, as that's definitely something that moves this more towards uh, that MMO style gameplay. It's not there yet, but it's definitely laying the foundation for it. Like, for instance, the Hathor being the sandbox activity, right? There's also missions that take you to Hathor facilities, and normally, an MMO would have a similar thing, but what you're doing is like the group activity that would normally be behind like a dungeon or an instance, right? Will have something that you need uh, or that you want, and there are quest items or there are items in the world that you need to also acquire in order to, like, let's say if we wanted to make a ship, right? I'm gonna just relate this to Star Citizen. Like how
Mm-hmm.
an MMO would approach this is like, okay, you got certain materials that you need in from the world, things that you need from quests, things that you need from the sandbox activities, and then maybe some dungeon material that is like the super rare things that depending on how your play style is. Let's say you're a multiplayer, you like playing in groups. Well, you're probably going to tackle the group dungeon first, whereas the solo player might go for all of the world items, the sandbox things, the quest material, things that they can do by themselves, so that the group play is the last thing they do. And you would do maybe a group finder, or say in chat, I'm looking for a group to take on this dungeon. I'm trying to complete. I'm trying to build like a C1, right? And so maybe there's a group that's looking for an additional player, so they bring you along, and you go in, do the dungeon. That would be the Hathor thing, right? You get the Paranite and take it to Wicklow, and um, everybody has what they want. You've already got your materials. Maybe you got more than enough materials that you can share with this group that is bringing you along, right? Like that's kind of how you approach an MMO, like traditionally as a solo player. Like solo players always have, typically, well, I won't say always, but a lot of times what you will do is have things that um, the multiplayer and orgs don't necessarily have, but you can share with them in exchange for them bringing you on with their party, right? So like
Yeah.
that aspect is where CIG needs to get to. We're not there yet because um, the social and org tools that make that possible aren't in the game yet.
Right. The biggest thing that jumps out to me when you're talking about that is like we can't even we need a looking for group functionality. And we know they're working on, well, we know that's in the plans. We don't know if they're actively working on that, but we know eventually you'll be able to post on a job board or even more or less diegetically, just kind of like looking for group in a more MMO sense and group people together. But one of the biggest things, and we are going to get back to if the game is at its best. But this is really interesting to me because one of the biggest things that's changed since those days we were talking about earlier when we got started, Halo 2 was hot on Xbox Live, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was coming out and everybody was hyped. Um, you know, Team Fortress 2 was on top of the world. Counter-Strike was huge. People were talking to each other
Yeah.
everywhere. Every game lobby you got into, whether they were telling you about the terrible things that they did to your parents the night before because 8-year-olds don't know how
uh,
else to talk crap, or because whether they were telling you did a good job in the game, good, keep it going. Like everybody was talking to each other, and you're like, okay, well, it's been 15 years and now nobody talks, and there's less and less reason to have a microphone on. And if you do have a microphone, it's a good chance that you're listening to somebody who's yelling something at you that you don't want to hear. And it's just not like it used to be. And I sound old saying that, but I feel like it's a much bigger challenge to get people to work together or socialize together on these types of games. And I do wonder to myself, how successful will they be in getting people to randomly group up and crew up and go out on ships together?
that is interesting because I haven't thought about it. I haven't in that framework, but I will say like back then, you know, we didn't have Discord and we didn't have party chats within like on even on a console, right? So if you wanted to play with your friends, you all had to go in game, party up in game, and then join a lobby together,
Yeah.
right? And that would ensure that you and your friends were together. Then when you're in the lobby, you can hear literally everybody talking, right? That's the console multiplayer experience. On PC and in MMOs, we always had social areas, like common areas where everyone met um to trade, to group up, like because not every MMO had like a group finder. That was something that they introduced later. Like early days, it was they always had these social areas where it was usually like a town center where they had, you know, inventory, they had banks where you could store everything. They had like some sort of global trade kiosk where if you were a crafter, you could craft and then put your, you know, gear or whatever you've crafted into this global um, trade kiosk that everyone on that specific server had access to. If you so all you had to do was go up to this trade terminal anywhere at any of the cities, and you could see what everyone has listed for sale on that server. And you could list your price. You had to be competitive with other people and their pricing for the same goods. Um, you know, people would be in chat. There would be like trade chats where people were, you know, commenting like, "Hey, I've got this thing for sale for X price," or DM me for price. And so like, there's a lot of activity, right? That it forced people to be social, like, and you could always come to these safe areas where you could trade safely, like you didn't worry about having to get ambushed. Like, you know, it was if you were an honest trader, that's where you went to do that. If you were looking for a group to take on a quest, like let's say it's a level 45 quest, well, you would go to the level 45 safe area and you would, you know, say in chat like, I'm looking to take on this quest. Like, I've got X amount of people already. We need two more. We need three more, or however many, right? And that's how people grouped. and Star Citizen doesn't have any of that yet. Like it's such a wild thing because um the environments and the world that they have created are like so beautiful, yet there's no areas that encourage that type of social activity.
Yeah.
Like there's no like where we don't have uh the player trading. We don't have a player market, right? Where people can like I like the kiosk, like the in the personal kiosk were a cool addition because it felt like something that I'm familiar with from other MMOs. However, the execution was
It was awful,
left a
man.
lot to be desired, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, they just took the freight elevator UI and tried to apply it to people, and it's just not the same. Yeah, I
yeah,
understand where they were coming from, but there's a reason they took that out rather quickly. I don't even, did
yeah,
that
it's
even make it to live?
no,
It's just PTU?
it didn't. It was just PTU, like it because it was so bad. Everyone who was testing it, like, we're like, yeah, this is like you're adding way too many steps
Yeah.
unnecessarily.
That was, yeah. Oh man. I'm glad that they thought about that one again.
Yeah,
Um, so you're right. It's missing a lot of those systems that do bring people together. I think it's interesting to ask folks, where do you go to find people in Star Citizen? Because everyone has a different answer. Where do you go to
yeah,
find people?
Discord.
I
Like
mean,
that's, I mean, like
no,
I don't know.
I mean, like in the game. Like if you were gonna try and find the largest grouping of people in a central location in Star Citizen, what would you say it
Oh
is?
wow. Usually one of the Lagrange the one of the Leo stations above a
Mm,
planet is normally, I think that's the highest concentration of people,
yeah,
but it's not even it's not even that really. It's just people, that's where people go because it's convenient, right? It's
easy to
not
start
a
from there.
place where they need to be. Like it's just a convenient location to
Yeah,
go do the things that they want to do, right? Whereas like normally in an MMO, you'd have a location like that would be exactly where that's where you would find mission givers. That's where you would find daily quest and activities. What is my camera doing? Um, um, that's where you've got your trade terminals. That's where you've got your item banks. Like, and that's like, I guess not to really jump ahead a bit, but with server meshing, it exposed to me that the game world itself of Star Citizen, especially Stanton, is not designed to facilitate more than 100 people. Like
yeah,
there's not enough of anything. Like there's not enough instances for one. There's not enough shops. Like there's not enough. I think they've. It seems like in the initial phase of developing the PU, they were more interested in spreading people out and getting people to go out to different locations than they were in trying to bring people together. And then from that central location, then you go out and do your stuff, like which is normally how MMOs work, and that's why you have those social areas because it's the hub where basically all your adventures begin.
hmm,
And we don't have that in Star Citizen. There's no you wake up in your hab, but your whole goal is to get out the hab and go do something else. Like you get a contract on your mobiGlas and gear up and go off on your adventure. But there's no location where that adventure begins. Like that's what brings people together in an
yeah,
MMO.
yeah. It's an interesting thought, and I think that's an entire podcast discussion on its own because I mean we're talking about trying to replicate that across main planets, trying to replicate it across star systems. How many central kind of meeting points do you need, and how do you move players around? But I do agree that the game is very clearly built for a smaller number of players, and it feels like that's an artifact of that 3.x branch of updates. And now we basically go through something similar to what we went through in 3.x, where they took all these systems we had in 2.x, where we were playing with 25 players per server, and they said, okay, let's get this up to the point where they can do it with 50 players. Let's expand the space. Let's build in more systems. Let's get features in that will drive the game forward. And now we're seeing with 4.0 is kind of hopefully happening again. And they're going, hey, we hit 120, 150 people. Let's now expand this to where it's scalable to I hope they don't like, okay, now let's get this to work with 600 people, and then 5 years from now, okay, now let's get this to work for 1,000 people. Like, scale it up, get it to that point now.
Yeah, that is an interesting that was something I was thinking about prior to the pod, was the how they scale, because normally in an MMO, like, right, let's say you have US East, right, as a region, and in US East you've got, let's say, 100 servers, and normally each server would have a player cap of like 999. That's the soft cap, and the hard cap is whatever. It'll probably take it over 1,000, right? You couldn't put 1,000 people in Stanton as is in the game without the game completely falling apart. Like, there was something. So I participated in one of the early Evo tests. Oh, was it? I don't even think that was an Evo test, but when they were didn't they try like 1,000 player server mesh test?
Yeah, I
Like,
think they got it.
I think around this time last year. It was in March or April.
They definitely did in like September, October. They were hitting 1,000 plus people.
There was a large scale test, because this is where they found the bottleneck. But it wasn't just the network that was the issue. It was literally the lack of instances that they had for Habs that was also a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Like, and it was like, wow, like, and to me, I started thinking, I was like, yeah, I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, no, like, Stan does not have the space to facilitate more than really 200 players. Like, it's kind of crazy.
Even Hathor is kind of built like that. You can still see it in the way they designed that location. I think the saving grace there is that, like, as a sandbox location, like you said, in the middle of a game, that is less likely to get overloaded as a city or a central location. But it is still, it feels like they are moving away from this design for a smaller game, but they still kind of have some, like, they have one foot in that.
Yeah, something that was encouraging for me was CitizenCon, when they were doing the Genesis presentation, and their new model for POI distribution. Like, I don't know how about you, but when I looked at that presentation where they zoomed out, like, it started at like a distribution center, and they zoomed out, and you saw like a whole bunch of areas around it, and then you zoomed out again. I was like, that looks like they built that for server meshing, because as it scales, like, you got these different regions, and it's like, well, based on how they've talked about dynamic meshing, like, if one of those areas becomes overburdened, like, it can just become its own server, and it can like really scale down onto that, like, micro level if needed, depending on how they move forward with dynamic meshing at some point in the future, hopefully near future, not not too far. Because I mean, that is important, like, for them to be able to get Star Citizen, Stand, Pirate, like all the 5 systems into a place where for 1.0, I feel like a shard needs to be able to handle, if we're at 600, like, a shard should at least be able to handle 1,200 for the 5 systems.
Dude,
at
when we're
minimum.
when we're hitting 1.0, I want to see thousands of people in a shard, like 10,000 plus.
It would have to be.
Yeah,
They've got to get to that point, because no one wants it to feel empty. We know the NPC crew is not going to be part of the 1.0 initial release, so we are going to be reliant on player activity to make the world feel alive. Like, we don't, I mean, I know they'll have NPCs in the game, but what makes an MMO feel alive is the people, it's the players, like seeing other players in an area. Like I remember being the first time like logging into like RuneScape and going to like Lumbridge, and that's like the first central area in the game. Like once you come out of the tutorial, like this is the first city that you're in, and like seeing just thousands of like hundreds of people there, right? Like that was a cool experience. Like I'd never seen anything like that before. Like, you know, you go from playing single player games to an MMO and like you see hundreds of people around. Like that's the coolest thing that you would ever experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like I want I want that same experience for someone playing Star Citizen for the first time in like 1.0 who's never heard about the games, never doesn't know anything about it. They log in for the first time and they see hundreds of people in this world. Like that's a experience that will stick with you forever.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've been talking a lot about how Star Citizen's been evolving and changing. I want to get to now the good side of the equation. Kind of why, let's say, why people seem to be saying that it's at the best it's ever been. Then I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that it is currently the best it's ever been, or was there another time when you liked the game more?
Hmm. So I started in 3.14 was the first build I played. Actually, I started like a month before 3.15 launched. Like I saw Crusader as the non-gas giant that you couldn't fly to, and like a month later, they had 3.15 came out, and we were playing like Crusader. Like so,
That was also when we got like the first real inventory and medical. That was a good time to join.
yeah, yeah. So I saw the older flight model, the press I anywhere inventory system,
Oh,
where like I was like, oh, this is why that's interesting because that's never I've never seen that in the game before. Um, that infinite bag of holding for real.
yeah.
And you know that they added the medical updates in 3.15 Crusader, the inventory system, like you know a lot of cool stuff. And I think the but there was a lot of instability, and it crashed a lot. There was no crash protection. 30Ks were a session ender. 3.17 came and it lasted longer than anyone anticipated.
That was a long time.
Very long wait. And but it was probably 3.17 was very stable because there were no features being added and they were able to hot fix, and just kind of like what they're doing now. But
That
the
felt like the
difference to
most
me,
that felt like the most stable branch of updates to me.
yeah, it felt like, oh, okay, this is Star, like if Star Citizen can be this stable, like we can, there's hope for it to become a game eventually. And now we're in that a similar period, but I think it's intentional. Like that was unintentional. CIG did
Yeah.
not plan for 3.17 to be in the live environment for as long as it was. It was like a year and a half. Like 3.18 was in testing for forever. Um, Several false starts on that. I remember that vividly. Um,
That was rough. But that
the
was also when
difference,
servers went from 50 people to 100.
yeah, randomly, it was in a point patch too. Like
Yeah.
they were
Point
just
two.
like, oh, yeah, hey, we're gonna double the server count, server pop,
Yeah. That was an
and it didn't.
interesting, I think, sign to a lot of people. They're like,
Yeah, and
wait,
then they ran Xenothreat.
right.
It's
But of
like,
course, you got extra
yeah,
headroom, you got to use it.
yeah, gotta immediately full send, pedal to the metal, waste no time. I
Very
mean
CIG.
I appreciate their approach in some regards. Like they do not mind flipping the table, and I appreciate people who are that bold. But it is nice in I think that this is the 4.1 patch cycle has been more stable and also more playable because and there's a bit more cohesion too between gameplay systems. Like they're clearly trying to not only um, bug fix, but make sure the content that they have in the game is more connected than it has been in the past. Like we're seeing that with the contested zones in Hathor, and then some new additions in the PTU right now.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised to see them putting some unique locations with unique, not contracts, but unique things in there that are actually linked to a mission giver, like on the other side of the system. That's not really something they've done before, maybe besides adding the prison along with like the hacking to get rid of your crime stat. It's
Mm.
almost as scaled up a sandbox activity as that, because they usually aren't linking things together across vast distances like that.
Yeah, like you got Wicklow who's providing um it's he's really like a crafting vendor and mission giver combination, which is a typical, like that's really a hallmark of MMOs, like for
Yeah.
especially for PvE related content or PvP content. Like there's always they're offering unique um uh currency in the form of the scripts and the favors for Wicklow. That's also another hallmark of MMOs. Like, yeah, you can always make money, but you also have like gear, currency, items that are unique to specific factions that you can only get through their quest lines or activities. So that's also good to see. We're seeing that with the Mercenaries Guild now, and the council. I believe if you do, well, actually, no, I haven't tested that. Uh, the Headhunters missions, but I'm pretty sure they offer the console scripts as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did see those in the PU, so um, we need more of that. Like they need to do the same thing for the Interstellar Transport Guild. They need to do the same thing for United Resource Workers. Like this is this patch for me is where it's really starting to feel like an MMO. Like they're laying the groundwork for the gameplay aspects of an MMO to really shine through. Um,
Now you're
you
talking mainly about, I'm sorry to cut you off. What
oh
were you
no,
going to
you're
say?
good. I was
Well,
just like, it's the contested zones, Hathor, and now Mercenary Guild. Like the rewards, they're adding variety to how you can acquire rare things,
right.
which is good.
So you're talking mainly about content here. But
Yes,
when I initially asked you about when the best time was in Star Citizen, you focused very heavily on stability. 317 was this
317
time
for
of
sure.
good stability. Yeah. So is it just the content that's taken it over that period for you right now, or do you also feel like the stability is there as well? Like have they, you said it was more intentional now. What do you think it is that's making it feel actually more stable?
I think it's overall server health and performance. Like that makes it feel stable. Like you can play for hours now, like without an interruption. Where in 317 you could, but that normally meant that you were on a low pop server, or um, you know, maybe it was a higher pop server, but everything wasn't working as intended. You might not get a 30K, but like the NPCs are not going to be responsive when you go to a bunker or do some combat missions. Um, you know, you might be able to mine for hours, but you're probably going to run into some invisible asteroids, and uh, there was just weird things that were like frustrating, and we
I don't know.
still
I hear
have.
about invisible asteroids nowadays.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Um, yeah, it's the overall like server. I think there were still some novelty in 317 with where they were headed. Plus, I think a lot of it was people's anticipation for 318 that kept people engaged in the wait during 317.
Yeah.
Like there was a carrot that kept getting pushed out, which was salvage and PES and all that. Like a the anticipation was palpable. Like people were excited. The excitement isn't there, which I think is what I think a lot of people are confusing with the playability and stability of the current 4.1 branch. I think the lack of excitement for what's to come, like we don't really know what's out beyond the next patch anymore. And that's different and it feels different. So there's nothing really to get excited for unless there's something exciting in the next patch. Whereas we knew, you know, or we believed that PES was the thing that was going to lead to server meshing, that was going to lead to Pyro. Like, so I don't know. We believed all that stuff was closer than it actually was. And it took 2-3 years before it actually came to fruition. Yeah. Like that, there was a lot of false starts in between. There were a couple good citizen cons in between that, like there's a lot of things that built hype around the future. And right now we're at a state where I think a lot of people were disappointed with the delivery of Pyro because it's not the Pyro that we were promised yet. They're still building towards that. And I mean, right now it's just Red Stanton. So we got basically a bigger Stanton and a normal size Stanton, and one is a little bit more dangerous than the other one, only because there's no like real reputation or crime system yet. And then kind of you couple that with the fact that we know that they're not working on features too heavily for this year, and based on their messaging, like they haven't given us anything really to be excited for other than a better playing experience, which I'm sure people are excited for, but that's not going to bring anybody back who's been waiting for a more playable experience. Like there's people want the game that we've seen the last two Citizen Cons. Like we're not looking for a more playable version of what we currently have. I think that's kind of where we're at.
I don't know. I feel like people are people are saying it's the best it's ever been because it feels so playable. I agree with you though that 317 was a time when hype for what was coming next was really high, and we basically have none of that now because there is no extended roadmap. There is no ISC talking about sprint reports or what's coming next or looking at the future. I think people are excited for the things we know about: FPS scanning, crafting, base building, data sharing, all that stuff. But there is a distinct difference from the 317 period in that people are sticking around for the stuff that's actually in the game right now, as opposed to the stuff that's coming later. At least that's the vibe I'm getting.
Yeah, no, I think that the people who are currently playing, who have been playing since 4.0 launch and didn't like step away, are happy. I mean, there's a tangible difference between 324, 4.0, and 4.1. Like if we could have gotten if 4.0 would have been where 4.1 currently is stability and playability wise when it launched, I think there would be a lot more excitement for the future. But it kind of felt like a status quo, like, okay, CIG, this is y'all are doing the same things that have basically hurt the reputation with their current players and have driven some people like not away from the project, but they're just they're taking a step back and kind of waiting for things to actually stabilize. Like they're not looking forward to this process of stability and playability. They want it to be stable and playable before they come back. Like a lot of people that I started playing with in 314 who have stepped away have not come back even though I keep them updated on like what all's happening, they're not interested in coming back yet because like they want a more complete experience of Star Citizen. Like they look at, like I said, they look at the last 2 Citizen Cons and go like, that's the game I want. Let me know when that's playable.
Right. So we were talking here about this whole idea that the game is the best it's ever been. People are, I think a lot of people are thinking that and saying that as far as the content that's being delivered, like you said, the connectivity of these things and stability improvements. But there are plenty of people who will tell you it's not enough. And like I'm not going to disagree with them. Obviously, there are a lot of expectations for this game that have been set by CAG themselves that they have fallen short of. Specifically 2023 CitizenCon, I think people are still waiting for the things that were kind of said mostly would be delivered in the next 12 months, um, or by the end of the next year, still not in the game. So what is it that you think is really holding it back from getting good enough? Like, I think everybody can agree that we want to see a Star Citizen 1.0, we want to see a great finished project, but there are people like those people that you know who left in 314 who are waiting for a specific moment to be able to come back. What do you think that that critical point is?
I think a lot of it has to do with the I think the sandbox aspects of Star Citizen becoming like the Star Sim stuff, your dynamic economy, your base building, crafting, that stuff will absolutely bring players back. Depending on the execution, like we don't need a piecemeal um system of base building and crafting in the economy. Like people want to be able to log into the game and um have be able to have goals to work towards. And I don't think that being not everybody is going to be satisfied with just going in and making millions of credits or just logging in and seeing their reputation go up with a certain faction. Like they want to be able to say, hey, I want to build a big base for my org and like you know have their org members go out, especially like I think me speaking from my friends who play the game who I met through Star Citizen, things that will bring them back are like a lot more of the group aspects. Like the social and org tools are a big one for sure, because even in the current state, being able to have them doing things that create less friction in grouping up with other players is going to bring a lot of players back, because one of the most unique and fun aspects of Star Citizen is playing with other people. Like you can do the game it becomes so much more when you have a fun experience with other players. Like that becomes the thing that you chase. Like I remember those early years when I first started and they were running Jumptown a lot and they were running Ninetales, threat. Like, yeah, they definitely ran that into a wall because of how often they were doing those events, but they were fun and they were ways for groups of players to get together and play together and um, do stuff. Hathor and the contested zones do that to a degree as well, but they have their issues in that there's no easy way to identify who's who. Um, VoIP is not reliable. VoIP is not reliable. Things that can help players identify threats quickly and easily don't exist in the game, and that can become frustrating because I can give an example. I don't know. Actually, you might have been involved with this, but I remember I was watching Morph, Burks, Salty Mike, and I don't know if you were there too, but they were all testing Hathor. They were all on the same server. This was in the PTU. They had no idea they were all testing at the same time. and they all had groups, and they were all trying to get the laser to fire, but none of them knew who each other were. So I'm watching, and I'm like, oh Lord. And like, they all happened to go to the Daymar location. Mike was already at one of the Daymar locations. Morph was on his way. Burks was on the opposite side. He was on the other. He was on the other platform. That one like failed. Morph and his group arrive at Salty Mike. They see the ship. They don't know who it is. They open fire, and I'm like, oh my god! And like, firefight ensues, and eventually they figure out, like, because Chad is like telling, Mike, like, hell, that's Morph. Like, they're not. They're all there for the same reason. It took Twitch chat for them to get on the same page about what they're like. They had no intentions of fighting each other. Had they known that they were there, they could avoid the fight. Same thing. And then Burks eventually shows up. Same thing happens. They have no idea.
Yeah,
and
but
I'm like, that's why a lot of players who look for the group play and org play who've been around for a minute, like, they're not interested in coming back to that, because that is frustrating, because that was a conflict that didn't really need to happen. Had they all were If the game had ways for us to easily identify who's who, we could have that could have been
oh
easily avoided.
yeah, I mean, and I think you're getting to, like, you've split the problem in half here and really highlighted that it's both features that people want that are going to improve the game, but it's also just kind of like, I don't want to say cultural changes, because it still depends on the way that the game works. When you talk about people grouping up and people being able to just like trade items with each other, those are features, but they're not quite features like people think of. People will think of, like you're saying, the ability to scan and identify other ships, or the ability to refine fuel or refuel quickly in the field. Like, those are the features you think of when you think of feature development. But then you look at some of the things that they have been changing this year, and they aren't the things you're specifically saying, but they are kind of like weird sort of bug fix slash features. Like the physics changes to ships, I think, is a big one that people actually really do care about, but nobody was writing it down on their wish list of things that they wanted to be updated this year. And I feel like those are the little things that start to stack up that are making people say it's the best it's ever been. But because we're still missing things like being able to identify other ships, you can still be like, yeah, but it's just not good enough still.
It's still the same experience. Like, now I 100% agree. It's a great point, because there's a lot, they're fixing the issues that shouldn't exist in the first place. Like, it's basic things that make it less fun to play Star Citizen. Like, it's frustrating as heck when you're in a fully crewed, like, Hammerhead or large capital ship, doing something with your friends, and then all of a sudden someone in Aurora just slams into the side of it and everyone dies. Like, that's not fun. Like, that is what will make people quit playing. Like, and they're fixing those things, which is good, right? But that's kind of like, it's low hanging fruit. Like, that's not nothing. No one's going to get excited enough to come back because those things are being fixed. It's they're they have no choice. Like, all those issues have to get addressed. But the things that will excite people are things that make it fun and enjoyable to play. Like the social and org tools. I feel like, for me personally, the social and the org tools was the best part of that presentation this year, this past CitizenCon. Like, VoIP and FOIP is cool. The idea of being able to holo call someone in another ship is cool. But you know what's cooler? An org tag. You know, like, someone in the garden playing by themselves solo, right? And they have their org tag up, and they run across another group who's also in the garden. All of a sudden, when that ship jumps in, that ship is green instead of white. And that completely changes the entire dynamic of this interaction.
Yeah.
Like, now I'm less defensive, because even though we're not playing together, I may not know who these people are. Like, oh, they're part of the garden. We're good. Like, we're all on the same side. It diffuses a whole lot of tension. And that, I think, a lot of people who are anti PvP will also like uh appreciate a lot of those changes as well, because that does make it a lot easier as a solo player to navigate the world, because you can see who's affiliated with who. That's why, to me, the Reputation V2 system, when I remember seeing the ISC on that years ago, and it was like, oh my God, that's a game changer. That would be so amazing for, someone who's doing work for, um, what's let's see, what's the mining thing that they just introduced?
The what company or
Yeah,
Hathor?
that, no, not Hathor, the resource workers, United
United
Resource
Resource
Workers.
Workers? Yeah.
Yeah, and then interstellar transport. Like, let's say you've done work with them. You're now they consider you an ally, and somebody else is doing like a bounty hunting mission in the same area where you're mining. And because they have high rep with Foxwell, and Foxwell has identified them as an ally, and Foxwell is aligned with uh, the
That
resource
guild.
workers,
Yeah.
both of those players show up green for each other. Completely defuse it. Like, that is a very important feature to have in an MMO.
Yeah.
Like, making it easier for threat assessment, like that makes it a whole lot easier.
I always hoped that they would also make sure that like master modes and the switch that you do factors into that. And now because they're getting rid of master modes, weapons will always be able to be powered on. But I do still. I mean, they're talking about things like delta signatures, where if they turn on their quantum drive, you can tell your ship will tell you. There needs to be something like that, I think, for weapons too, because it also helps
Oh
with
yeah, for
what you're
sure.
talking about. It lets people not shoot first. Like that would be such a big change for Star Citizen. People need to not shoot first. We got to talk to each other first.
We see it in Star Trek all the time. Literally, like when they're on the bridge and they're
Yeah.
confronting another ship, they can see, hey, their shields are powering up, weapons are on. Like, there's an alert that happens, someone's notified with that, and so you know what the intention is. Although I do think that the changes that they've communicated to master modes, I think, are definitely better than what we currently have, because I think the switch is weird for new players. Like, that's such a weird
The
thing to
Switch is
try
weird
and
in
explain.
general, just
Like, that's
period.
just such a odd gameplay mechanic that is unnecessary. Um, so going back to what I do like about the newer model is that it seems to be incorporating engineering and crafting into the system
Yeah.
diegetically.
Thank
So
God.
like
Thank God. I was
your
so
tier,
worried that wasn't happening.
it was, and it's like I made a video about this like a couple years ago now, I think, but talking about like components and like how it would be just nice for, as you upgrade your components, the characteristics and flight model of your ship will change so that you can have more variety in ships. Like, two Gladiuses going up against each other is not going to necessarily be on the same level, because like one ship might have it might have better components and a better pilot. So now it has the advantage, instead of just you just going out and buying all grade A components. Like, the way they've talked about crafting is that there can be a lot more nuance in ship flight profiles and characteristics, like
Even your
based on
flight
the
speed.
quality of material. Like, yeah, ship's flight speed, all that comes down to material quality, instead of like what you've bought at the uh chip shop or what you've looted. Like, you might loot a grade A component in a contested zone that might have better stats in certain areas, but it might have some deficiencies in others. That at a there can be differences between what players craft and what you loot. That's a great thing. Like, to me, like that's exactly um what we need. And I think that those are the things for sure, feature wise, that are going to bring a lot of players back to the game, on top of the current efforts to make the game more playable and stable. If they can do that this year, make it playable, stable, and then introduce features maybe like in the second half of the year or into next year that do not break the game like they have so much in the past, then yeah, I think a lot of people will start to trickle back in.
But you mentioned something really important there, and that is the features. One of the big things that has been given up, well, I won't say given up, deprioritized over the last 5 months or so, um, has been at least our visibility of future development. Now, we know features are still being developed. Monthly reports are saying as much, but ISC isn't talking about it. Star Citizen Live isn't talking about it. The roadmap is clearly not talking about it, as mostly that's pointing at the next patch. So feature development has taken a step back. We don't really know where things like engineering, Starware, Starchitect, new star systems, insurance, we don't even know where item recovery tier 2 is going to be.
Which is that's scary.
Yeah. So that's the other side of this coin of Star Citizen's in a great place. It's also to the people who are looking for the game to actually get finished, it feels like it's stagnating. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, well, if your updates are coming primarily from the video content and not you playing, yeah, it looks like I could see this looking like a pretty regressive year because the video content is sporadic. I don't think it's ever been sporadic. Um, it's a lot about. It's not that interesting. I don't think I couldn't tell you what the most exciting ISE episode has been this year because I don't think I have one personally that has been like, oh my god, that's so amazing. Like last year was probably peak. Like last year was amazing. The video content was fantastic. Like there was a lot of hype. It just unfortunately issues within game development happened and they were not able to deliver on the time frame that they had thought they could. But I think that they may have overcorrected the video content for this year. I do think that a big strength of Jared's and his team are building hype, and I don't think that they need to diminish that. I think they need to continue to do things that get the player base hype, even though it may be way off. Like, sure, they may not know when these things are coming, but being able to see what they're working on, what they're working towards, what their priorities are, like how they want to roll things out, like that would be so nice to see. Like, I don't want to know, like what the story beats are going to be for the narrative content necessarily. Like, I do want to experience that in the game. There's a lot of things I do want to experience in the game, but I also want to know, you know, how development on Vulcan is going and how the social tools and Genesis and Plant Tech V5 and all the other things that they talk about in at CitizenCon are going. Like there is value still in building hype around those things.
So, well, last year was really hyped. I think they went overboard last year, quarter 1, trying to hype things up before they realized, oh boy, we got kind of stretched thin, and then they ramped it down a little bit throughout the year. But it wasn't until 4.0 came out that it feels like they really were like, hey, no more hype at all. Are you feeling that too? Like I mean, you said that they went
For
too far the
sure.
other direction.
Yeah.
Um, do you think that's because they don't have things to show, or are they just like scared because of what happened last year with how angry people got towards the end of the year?
Yeah, I think it's a mix of both. I think that I mean they're not working on stuff, but I think a lot of the effort really is still on Squadron, and which is where it should be. However, that doesn't mean that we can't see like some test levels of them demonstrating features being worked on in Squadron. Like, where's you put the Gladius in a test level showing off the radar scanning features and engineering stuff, and I don't, maybe that's difficult. I do think that if the another sign of that is the Digital Citizen Con being a thing, like they clearly are focused on trying to deliver Squadron. Like that is still a high priority, and I think that we're more so than the disappointment. I think that is what the real um hurdle is right now. It's not necessarily the PU. Like I don't even think that this year really is about stability for the PU this year. I think it's about making sure that the PU is ready for Squadron 42's release. Because as you remember, as we all do, in was it 23 when Jack Frags and Summit and Level Cap and Ali and all those other streamers that I may have
the big
forgotten
boys
started playing Squad or Star Citizen. It exposed, like they had what I think close to 1 million new players that year.
Yeah, 2023 is the biggest new player push ever.
But CIG was not ready for that moment. Like that, they had no control over that. That was something that happened organically, and they were not ready. The game was not ready for that moment at all. And I think that I think they know that they cannot repeat that when Squadron comes out, because based on the vertical slice that we saw at CitizenCon, that gameplay demo, like that game has a lot of potential to be a game of the year PC candidate for sure. Like all they have to do is make sure that the gameplay is stable. Like the story looks solid, the visuals look amazing.
If people are okay with like the high exposition, I genuinely, it looks to me like they have done a lot to make it less intimidating to the people who don't come from spaceship flying games. And I say that as somebody who doesn't come from a spaceship flying game. This game looks like it will include so much FPS, and I don't mean shooting. I just mean FPS perspective, puzzle solving, platforming, social areas, discussions, and then also the shooting and looting gameplay. It looks so well rounded that it actually could have a chance of getting a little outside of the people you would think would play Star Citizen, which is like spaceship nerds.
No, yeah, for sure. I think a testament to that though is the fact that you got Level Cap and Summit and like those guys who they were legitimately enjoying their time in the game outside of the bugs. Like they saw the potential of it and they exposed their audiences to it as well. And then if you look at IGN, when they reposted that gameplay trailer from this year, from last year, I keep saying this year, that was probably the most positive content that a third party has put out about Star Citizen that I've ever seen. Like, I mean, it's got more views than the Star Citizen channel, and like the comments are positive. Like, and that
people
to
are
me,
like, "This isn't Star Citizen. Shut up."
Yeah, like, and to me, I think that's a win for CIG. Like, and they've got to understand. Like, I think it's good that they had that experience of 23. I think it's good for them in that they now see the importance of making sure that Star Citizen is in a good spot for Squadron when it comes out, because it will have a massive influx of players coming in, because there are going to be a lot of people who have never heard of either of these projects or companies before that are going to play that game, hopefully be blown away by it. And of course, CIG is going to market Star Citizen to those players, and it needs to be in a decent place. They'd be crazy not to.
I mean, if they're gonna have people download this launcher for Squadron, then you want to have Star Citizen right there, a click away, ready to play. And people need to dispel. Go ahead.
It's all going to be on the same launcher. Like that the whole launcher rework is like I do have a background in marketing. Like that everything that they're doing is in preparation for Squadron 42, more so probably than 2016. Um of course, like the advertising aspect of the marketing campaign hasn't kicked in full swing at all yet, but it doesn't need to. It's not ready.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing the signs of their preparation for that game.
Yeah, you can't even buy it anymore.
Yeah.
And
I will say that though, when they do introduce that pre-order, which I'd imagine if I were internally setting goals for Squadron, my first internal goal would be for Invictus next year to have Squadron out. I wouldn't announce that, but that would be the internal goal, and I would try to get a playable demo and a pre-order out at the same time for Squadron. And I think they could probably do that at a CitizenCon at digitally, because it makes sense at a digital CitCon to do that because everyone's going to be home. So you can put the pre-order back out and have a demo available for people to play. Plus,
I think a demo would be great.
It gets them telemetry on hardware as well. Like Baldur's Gate did that. That's why Baldur's Gate had such a good launch, because they put that demo out, which was a nice vertical slice of all their content in the first, several hours of gameplay. It got people could play it. You saw like they got a lot of hardware data. They were able to optimize the engine and fix any of the bugs. And when it launched, they had a few issues, but nothing like game breaking. And they need that for sure.
So Squadron 42 hasn't started its marketing stuff just yet. But like you said, they're getting prepared for it. And I think a lot of people would agree that what they're doing right now with the PU is in preparation for Squadron, and the idea that Squadron will bring in a flux of people, because people need to dispel this idea that everybody who's ever going to play Squadron's already bought it. I don't know why I hear that so often, but the game's not been for sale for like what, 2 years now?
Yeah, 2-3 years now.
Like, you know how many people build their first computer in 2 years?
Yeah, like just look at like, what do we have, like 5 million backers, 5-6 million backers, something like that.
That's not a lot for a game.
If you think that that's all that's going to be playing Squadron, you are crazy. Like that game is not it's not a space sim. Like it is they've moved away from the sim aspect of game more towards something that's more palatable to a variety of players. Like you were saying, there's a lot more focus on the FPS aspects. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of space fights and dog fights, but it's less sim like than something like a DCS, which is hardcore sim. We're in like War Thunder-esque territory, right? With more high fidelity assets and locations and a story and narrative. Like that game is far more palatable to a lot more people than like a DCS, to give an example.
But do you think that I guess what I want to get at is, do you think this was really supposed to be a year of playability for Star Citizen, that they reached server meshing and now they're finally taking that opportunity? Or do you think it's more strongly driven by that appeal to want a game that can back up Squadron when it releases?
I think it's the appeal to back up a game like Squadron. I think that had 23 not happened, and there's no way they didn't listen to the feedback of summits and the love caps and like, they are aware of how the game is, and I think that they are very aware of, if they weren't then, they are now, of how bad. Like we've been saying it for years, but like, I mean, you're preaching to the choir at this point. Like But when outsiders come in, people who were there trying to appeal to, they've already got us. Like, we're willing to put up with, and I think Chris said it at CitizenCon, like we're willing to put up with the bugs and all the stuff. Like, but there's millions of people who are not going to put up with any of that. Like any slight bug inconvenience, and they are not going to play the game anymore. You know, so like if they want people to play both games, if they want to appeal to both of those audiences, like yeah, Squadron has to be like you can't the experience between Squadron 42 and the PU play like from a playability standpoint, there cannot be a stark contrast there.
Yeah.
Like they can't afford to do that because while people may enjoy the Squadron, like they if they hop into the PU, like if the PU was in the same state it was in 324 when Squadron came out, oh my god, they would never play
Yeah,
PU ever again.
I find that always really funny because then it's like you think back to all these times when they were like, yeah, Squadron's going to come out 2016, it's going to hit
There's
beta
no
in
way.
2020. And you're like, okay, this is the same thing I come to as well with the Pyro system. And I'm like, okay, what if Pyro did come out in 2020? What if Squadron did release in 2020? The PU would be in the absolute worst possible position to handle those content releases or those influx of players. And on one hand, I'm like, okay, well, it's good that they took this long with Squadron because now the PU's had time to catch up. But on the other hand, I'm like, what was your plan?
Yeah, 100%. Like it makes no sense. Like I know it's the meme of, hashtag Pyro 2020, but like, oh my God, what were they going to ship in 2020 if they were able to get server meshing? Like, what was that? Because what we have right now took them years to get to. Like, what were we going to have? Like, just a couple space stations? Like, were they going to launch it just kind of like how they had the PU and just, update different landing zones and outposts and the space stations? Were they going to just patch them in over time? Like, what were they going to do?
I mean, it's kind of like what we're seeing now. Like we got Pyro and we're seeing it being built afterwards piecemeal, but it's, they didn't even have the colonialism outpost. Like it would have just been a star system with nothing to do. People talk about how Pyro is nothing right now, but imagine if it had released back then. No reputation, no gangs, no advanced mining, no more interesting merc missions and stuff, no asteroid facilities. Like
No
I
solar flare,
and
like no environmental dangers, like
yeah. Well, I mean, we still don't have the solar
still
flare,
don't
but
have
that's
those, but still part of the point. Like,
and that's I think that's where the most annoying part of this project for me is just like I love what you guys are going for. I am here for what you're shooting for, and it's not easy to put the plan together. I understand there are delays and stuff, but there are times when I'm just like, dude, you were so far off, and I really hope that what they've gone through over this last year or two with the kind of reconfigurations and reformatting of how they're announcing, sharing, and planning things out, I really hope they've gotten that under control. It feels like they're better. We can tell from the whole knee jerk and anti hype reaction this year. But I hope they don't make another dumb call like that. No dates is good. They're not giving dates. They didn't come out and be like, yeah, Terra in 2 years or something like that. But it's worrying that they made calls like that before.
yeah, it's honestly exciting on the one hand, the 1.0 stuff, but on the other, like it's like y'all do realize you can't have 1.0 be another Pyro. Like,
It's
like
got to be a real release.
you have to have all these things working, all those. And I do, there are, like I said, there are signs that they are doing this the right way this time, that but you have to be active in the testing environment and following all of the development things. You have to be following the roadmap updates and the um monthly reports, and be an active tester to see like, no, they are doing things differently this year than they have in previous years. Like they
They
canceled the fruit
really
fly.
are.
Like that was like mind blowing. I'm like, what? like you're canceling a free fly because the game isn't playable. Like, who are you? Like, where
They're
did
doing
y'all?
better.
Who is this people?
Yeah.
What is this company? I like these people. Like, whoever. Like, that was a great decision. And they're benefiting from it now in the current free fly because they're financially doing pretty dang well this year, and
They're doing very
actually
well. I'm surprised.
the yeah, like it's shocking. Like, obviously, like I think that um people when people are satisfied, they definitely show you with where they choose to
Dude,
spend their money.
thank you.
Right?
People keep saying, "Oh, you're gonna release more ships and make more money." And yes,
They
ship
don't have
releases
to.
help. Like they've released a new ship every month this year, and I think that has helped them. But above all else, when people are happy playing the game, I think they spend more money, and
Yeah,
I think
it's
CIG knows that.
very clear and apparent. And then the more things they can add, like that are less expensive, the better. Like the more cosmetic items that they can add to the game, stop. That's better. Like it helps. Like I mean, I do I do think that um I'm still waiting for on the testing side, like where's our first um e- preview test? Like even
Yeah, the
that I think would
EP2.
help with a lot of people. Like I think
What
a
the
lot of
heck?
people would help with, like if they had a preview of engineering that was open, like that people could just go in and test and they can give feedback, like something that's a little far out that people can hop in and play. Yeah, it might be extremely buggy and frustrating, but you have a pretty sizable testing audience that is kind of burnt out with the content
They love
that
testing.
would appreciate testing, engineering, and base building and crafting and all of the other features. You know, I think that I would like to see them move to like a rolling release cadence where they use the tech preview to kind of sort of keep things in a test cycle. Like that's I look at like a game like Arma Reforger Reforger and like a DCS where they had, you know, a testing environment that stayed open that anytime they had new features that were ready to test, they just put them in there
Yeah,
and you could play either version indefinitely. Like
I think
I
that
don't
would
know. I
be
think
really good for the game. I think that'd be great. But Squadron 42 is kind of a big topic here to wrap things up, to wrap the show up. And I think one of the biggest things that um, is probably going to drive the discussion going forward, especially as we get deeper into this year. But there is a contingent of players who will say, um, Squadron 42 is still the focus. I mean, we kind of all, I think, agree on that if we're paying attention. And we can see that it is still taking plenty of resources from Star Citizen. A lot of people are saying this is leaving Star Citizen on life support and feeling a little ripped off that so much of this money and effort and interest in Star Citizen is actually going towards Squadron still, and Star Citizen is just kind of getting the leftovers even now in 2025. Do you feel like it's hampering the PU or the development of it is still helping more?
I mean right now it definitely is. If you're looking for feature work and faster development, like I think yeah, it is obviously it is hurting the PU in that regard. Like it's because they're not able to focus all of their efforts entirely on the PU. And that's not going to change until they ship it and you know they validate any issues and fix any issues with it post launch. And like once they actually stabilize whatever or whenever they launch it, once Squad 42 is out, stabilized, and the any issues that they have, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be at least the best case scenario is that they have some minor issues that are going to take a couple weeks for them to iron out. Which hopefully none of the issues will be something game breaking. Um, Baldur's Gate, as an example, had a few issues that they were able to patch. I didn't experience anything problematic at launch, but there were issues. But that's what they need to focus on, and it's going to take them probably like a month, maybe 2 months before they iron all that stuff out, and then they'll be able to focus their entire development eye of Sauron on the PU and 1.0, which I think at that point is when a lot of more casual players will see a bigger shift in the development of the game. And we just the problem is we just don't know when that is.
Yeah.
No, we can't put
And
a.
I think the bigger problem is that CIG keeps hinting at it being right around the corner, coming. Oh yeah, we're going to work on Squadron for 2 years, and then that stuff's going to start to come to Star Citizen. Oh yeah, we got FPS scanning and interaction, and the maps are all good for Squadron. We're going to port those over to Star Citizen next year. It's like a year and a half later, and they're still not here. So everybody's like, okay, cool. Well, you say that you're going to work on Squadron, and that's going to help the PU, but then you don't get them here. And it's like, what are you doing? And then they just shut up for half a year and don't say anything about it. So no EPTU, no features coming from Squadron, no feature development being shared. And it's all playability, but that's because Squadron's coming out next year. So what are you guys actually giving to Star Citizen players here besides some content that you can make because you have some free time?
Yeah, and it's not even like making content, because it's literally just taking what's there and iterating on it some more, making like the patrol missions are just a combination of all of the other space combat missions put into one mission.
Yeah.
Like you the network intrusion mission is part of the combat patrol missions. The what were the formerly known as the combat assist beacons are part of patrol missions. Your ambush mission is basically the reverse of the combat assist beacon. Like all of this stuff is already things that they have worked on previously, but they're now trying to make a game out of that content, which is good, but not exciting. Like that's the problem. And it does feel like, yeah, we've put the PU on ice until Squadron 42 is ready.
Again.
Now, so like once again,
yeah.
However, I do want to give them some credit. Like I do like the fact that the teams are now, they've got one team basically. Like
They
right, like
feel cohesive.
they're not. It's not compartmentalized anymore. Like if you go look at the progress tracker and look at all the teams that they previously had, if you've ever worked in a corporate environment, I'm not working in I've never worked in games, but I've worked corporate, and if you have that many departments, that's insane. Nobody knows what the heck's going on. There's no way everybody knows what's going on.
There's a lot. There was a lot moving around, yeah. So
Yeah.
and that might just have been the product of, they say a person can carry a company to 500, but the person who needs to carry it to 20,000 is going to, pick up somewhere there as well. And I think that they reached that point at some point, and the company just took a while to catch up, which we're just now seeing. And
Yeah.
like, I am personally not crazy about the way that Star Citizen's being developed right now. I hope everybody could tell. I was speaking a little bit from personal feelings there. The feature development has taken a step back, and I am, for all the folks out there that think that I just never get annoyed with things, I am very annoyed with this. I want to see the EPTU be used. I want to see freaking quantum travel get updated, even if it's going to be a broken model, because it's supposed to be updated. And they won't fix the broken model if it doesn't have to be in the PU because it works for Squadron. And that kind of stuff, it does. I can understand how it chips away at people at some point. But on the flip side, like Squadron's got to fund Star Citizen, so they need to get it done.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you kind of got to look at it like, all right, well, how much money they've raised over 800 million. So you have to root, if you're here for the PU, then you should want Squadron to be super successful, because if it can make over $800 million over the course of his lifetime, then it will have made back the money that they invested into it, and all that can go back into the PU.
Right.
imagine what kind of game we could have at that point. Like the unfortunate part of it is like it's just the timing. It's like where timeline are we? Like how far out are we? Like there's this aspect of me that sees 1.0 and go like, God, that's like it can feel like 5 to 10 years out. But then there's another part of me that goes like, well, I mean, maybe it's like 3 to 5. Like either way, it's too long. But at some point, like everyone who's playing in the PU and wants uh the Star Citizen experience that we've been uh showcased the last 12 years, you have to root for Squadron 42 to come out and be successful. Like it's really because we can't get the game unless Squadron comes out. We can't get the game we want until Squadron comes out. Like that's just it is what it is. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's frustrating. I'm equal parts frustrated and also content with where we are, I think.
Yeah.
Like last year was an emotional roller coaster. Like last year I became an Evo like last year at the beginning of the year, and so I'm excited for 324 and having to see 324 get broken down piece by piece because freight elevators like literally broke the entire moment. I think
they're still freaking
more than server meshing. Server meshing was the long-term goal. I think everybody was expecting there to be issues with server meshing. I think what threw them off completely was the freight elevators. You could see it in Evo. Like when we tested 324, oh my God, those freight elevators broke everybody.
Well, it was definitely one of the more intense delays of a feature. The way that it was supposed to be in 323 and then like last minute got delayed, and then we realized I think it was like around June or July that the testing to get it into the game was going to be so much longer than just, oh, it'll be in 323.1 or 2. It was like, oh, this is months away. And then even as Chad was like, oh, this isn't 6 or 8 months away in time, it ended up releasing like 5 months later, still broken. We're still dealing with problems with it. I think, yeah, I think that caught them off guard. I think you're right.
That was the thing. I honestly that was the one that shifted momentum for every like that. You could just speaking from experience as an Evo, that patch broke a lot of people. Like testing it and like because the first build I remember clear as day. Like getting that and trying to go and use the freight elevators. Everyone realized like, oh my God, this is months away. Like there's no way that this is gonna be ready anytime soon. And it was kind of like, oh, okay, like everything was there's a lot that was tied to it with freight and the um it's obviously a necessary feature, but it also needed a lot more time to cook. Like it just did.
It really did. Yeah. All right, man. This has been a great talk about where Star Citizen is, if it's at its best, why it's at its best, why that's not enough for a lot of us. It's a weird time to be a Star Citizen fan. It's both exciting and satisfying because for once we're getting content. It feels like a proper game is kind of starting to come together. There are things to do, things are getting connected, little problems are getting figured out. But then at the same time, you're like, where's the feature development? Why am I still getting killed by elevators? What the heck is going on with quantum travel? Like it's a weird time. Do you have any final thoughts on how you're feeling about this? Is the game at its best? Do you feel like it still disappointing? What's your final thoughts?
Um my final thoughts are like I wouldn't say the game is at its best yet. Um
I want to
but
stop you real quick then. In that case, when was it?
I still think it was 317 primarily because of it was a lot more engaging, like, and the player base was a lot more excited than we are currently. Like
Okay.
I think we are experiencing I think CIG is approaching this year the right way, and they're doing everything the right way, and what they're doing is necessary in order to get the game um, to be a more enjoyable experience. But it's still got a ways to go before I'd say it's at its best. I think we're building towards that for sure. But like my best experiences and my best memories with Star Citizen were in that 316, 317 period.
Okay.
For sure. Like, yeah. Yeah. And those experiences, I want those experiences to happen in this current version of the 4.0 branch.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, thank you so much for the opinions, for the talking points, for the discussion today. If you can let the folks know where they might find more of your own discussions before we sign off, that'd be lovely.
Yeah, once again, thank you for having me on. Certified Gumbo, you can find, technically we are a conglomerate, but we have YouTube where we post videos. And I occasionally stream on Twitch, also at Certified Gumbo. So yeah, social media is kind of in a weird place right now. So we are not really active on social media because of things. There's not a fun place to be. Not
Social
like it
media is
used to
weird.
be. So we're not active. So I'm not even going to promote our socials. So if we also have a Discord. So yeah, the best place to contact me or see any of my content is definitely on YouTube, Twitch, and on our Discord. So
We'll
yeah,
have those
once again,
channels. Oh,
thank
sorry.
you. Thank you for having me on again. I appreciate these conversations. It's good to be able to talk to about Star Citizen with other people in real life.
Thanks for joining. And for anybody who's interested, we'll have that in the show notes for you. But as always, you can find this podcast. We're on audio platforms. We're on YouTube. If you don't like YouTube, audio platforms are doing video now. It's weird, but yeah, that's how it is. Also, some new changes coming to the podcast in the very near future. We'll have an announcement about that soon on the Discord, probably on the next podcast episode, all that jazz. But thank you all for joining us for another week of discussion. I've been your host, Space Tomato, and I will see you all next week.